Well, good afternoon, everyone. And it gives me enormous pleasure this afternoon to welcome a very special guest. Now, normally, Pete Seaward is behind lens, and today he's actually going to be in front of the camera, and I'm going to chat to him about the work, his career, and all the wonderful work that he does at Venom, and the way that he brings Venom and all the creatures, the birds that live in the park to us all. So Pete, welcome.
Thank you. You're making me sound like one of the creatures that lives in the park as well already.
Well, you are a lot of the time, aren't you? I know that. Now, Pete, before we start chatting about your work at Venom and your photography, you know, in the park and everything, can I just ask you, you know, tell me a bit about your background. How did you come to be interested in photography? How did you come to Blenheim?
Okay. The relatively short answer to that is I studied graphic design a million years ago at Maidstone College of Art, and I was destined to be a graphic designer, really. That's what I wanted to be. And coincidentally, we had a really good photographic tutor that came down on day release once a week from London. And he was very, very inspiring, gave us a lot of really inspiring projects to photograph. And he was a breath of fresh air compared to all the other tutors that we had that were, you know, very sort of technical based. And I always used to look forward to that one day a week when he came down, and he just inspired me to get really interested in photography. And I found out afterwards he was actually a very famous photographer, and he photographed the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, etc. But you know, with that enthusiasm, it helped me realize how photography could be a really powerful tool in the world of design and advertising. And you know, it's very true, a picture tells 1,000 words. And you can relate the two things very closely together. Graphic design and advertising just go hand in hand. So that's how I really got into it. And then I went up to be a designer for probably about 6 years, but I thought, you know what, I just really love photography, and I want to have the opportunity to do it as a full-time career. So I taught myself a lot more about photography, bought a lot of equipment, wasted a lot of money, bought a lot of books, made a lot of mistakes, and just learned the hard way, really. And spent a lot of time in London being in a studio, just got really fed up with the environmental issue of being stuck in a studio, and when the sun did shine in the summer, just bringing down all the blinds in the studio and blacking out everything. And it just got to me in the end, and I thought, you know what, this is not why I got into photography. I got into photography because I want to be in the great outdoors and take pictures of landscapes, and so that's how it started.
And so did you move from London up to Oxfordshire?
No, I was in London for a long time, 16 years.
Right.
And I ended up working mainly in the world of advertising on various projects. And literally, I would never know when the phone rang where I would be sent to next. And they were big jobs, you know, for major international clients like airlines and tourism boards, and, you know, just big jobs that when you went in for a meeting, there'd be at least 10 people sitting around the table, all putting in their contribution to what the job entailed. And probably by that stage, it had been through 3 months of market research anyway, before the brief actually finally came to me. And by then, they'd already gone through a raft of other photographers that they potentially wanted to use for the job anyway. Then it would get down to 3, and then you would finally be chosen if you were the lucky one to go in and actually take on the job. So it was a very long process, but I did get to see some amazing countries around the world that I would probably never have done just as an independent tourist. And we did it in style, you know, and it was in the days when money was there to spend in the world of advertising, sometimes frivolously, but most of the time because it was needed for the production, you know.
And do you miss that aspect of
I don't miss
the
stress. It was really, really, really stressful, because some jobs would be like £500,000 just for a series of pictures. Maybe it was a car that we were shooting out in the Arizona desert or somewhere like that. And back in those days, the cars would be shipped all the way from Detroit on a trailer, you know, an American truck, all the way through to the California desert where we were shooting. Plus there'd be a team of at least 10 people.
Mm.
And there might be models involved as well, plus, you know, the airfares of flying us and the agency and the creative director all the way over from London to Los Angeles. And, you know, it just became massive budgets. And one screw up by me as a photographer, you imagine the pressure on me all the time.
So
it was, you know, sleepless nights.
So it was a far cry from this.
Very much.
And we'll come back to this in a moment. So how did you come to be at Venom?
Well, one of the clients I had towards the end of their career in London was Visit Britain, and they were, you know, responsible for promoting Britain to foreign visitors, and they were government funded, and they gave me some really beautiful jobs promoting Britain, Yorkshire, Scotland, and one of them was some stately homes. I think it was Leeds Castle, Hever Castle, and a few others, and Blenheim was one of the ones on the list. And so I ended up being here. We had a couple of models. We shot various parts of the estate, and it was just to encourage people to visit places that weren't that far from Blenheim Palace, from Buckingham Palace. Always
right.
Blenheim, much more important, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the right palace.
Yeah. So, because what people would do is they would come to London and go to Buckingham Palace because it was relatively easy. Now, of course, they go to Buckingham Palace and Bicester Village. But, you know, back in those days, they wanted to encourage people to say, hey, within reasonable reach of London, you know, you land at Heathrow, go to London, see Buckingham Palace, then go down to Oxfordshire, see the beautiful city of Oxford anyway, which, as we all know, is very historic and fantastic architecture. And of course, Blenheim is very close by and very accessible, and it has wonderful grounds here and fantastic history. And, you know, people certainly from Southeast Asia love that side of it, as well as, you know, many other parts of the world. So
at that time, were you taking shots of the exterior and interior of the house rather than the grounds, or a bit of both? For that particular project, it was of the grounds, because we shot the family down by the Cascades and the Rose Garden and down by the lake as well. And then the marketing guy that I was working with at the time on that project, to liaise with at Blenheim, said, hey, I didn't realize you live locally. Would you ever be interested in doing some more regular work for the palace? You know, because it's very convenient that you're here. You know, we don't have to bring someone all the way down from London or whatever. And it was a win-win situation for everyone, because being so close, it means I could get here for sunrise. And at this time of year, it's an uncomfortable time of year to get up for sunrise. Yes. You know, I've got to be out of bed by 4:30 in the morning, everything in the car, and get over here and just pray that the sun's going to come up. And at the moment, it's tricky. Absolutely. So you've gone from a really corporate kind of background. I don't like that word corporate, but yes. I know, well, I'm sure you don't, but it does describe it quite well. I guess I did do a lot of editorial work as well. Yeah. At the same time, so that wasn't always so corporate. But the point I'm trying to make is that you're now, you know, almost you've done a complete about turn in that, you know, you're getting up at crack of dawn to see the sunrise. And why do you do that? Why? Well, we even had to do that in the corporate world, because when we were doing any shoot, doesn't matter where it is, you'll find that the best light is really early morning and late evening. Sometimes you would shoot in the midday. I'm not saying that to any photographer don't shoot in the midday, because you can get some beautiful effects with lighting in midday sun just by being at the right angle at the right time. And sometimes it's just a magic moment of activity, you know. But, you know, for me as a photographer and many other landscape photographers, we just love that early morning light when the sun's just rising and it's kissing everything with this beautiful golden atmosphere. And it helps us keep above the competition of the amateurs that go out in the midday sun. Right. Let's have a look at some of your work, and you know, people can see your work quite regularly. You do a whole series called Behind the Lens, and it's on our Facebook page, and I'm sure people watching this will be familiar with it already. Oh, they will. So let's have a look. Okay. And you know, this is one of the shots that you sent to me that you wanted to include, and it's such a beautiful spring and the sun shining. You know, tell me about that. Well, can you remember taking this?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the palace is I kind of know it from every single angle. Been photographing the place for 8 years now, so it's always difficult to try and find something new, some angle that I haven't shot before, and give it a different approach. And obviously every shot we have to do is to promote a season, to encourage people to come and visit the place at a certain time of year. So what I wanted to do was say, okay, well, people come to the South Lawn to really look at the blossom that's coming out, and you know, they like to see the palace in the best light. So it was just me trying to find an angle that I hadn't shot before that really gave it some nice sort of composition and framed it up with the blossoms, and just try and make it different to what I've always done. And that's always the challenge, trying to find something different, trying to find something different.
And Pete, because I've particularly during lockdown, there was a time when I was allowed to walk with my very good friend Hilary, who's the head gardener, and we came upon you a few times, and you had step ladders, and you were definitely lurking. So would you use a step ladder or something to get this shot?
Yeah,
or are you standing?
On this one I didn't need to, but there's another one that you've probably seen on the website where I have a very large extending pole that goes up about 40 feet in the air.
Oh, right.
On the top of that pole, I have a camera with a remote head, and then it relays a signal to either my iPad or my phone, and I can literally adjust all the settings on the camera. I can adjust the angle of the camera, and then just wait for everything to be right, and then I can just click the shutter like that.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah, it's very useful, and I use it a lot in some of the wildlife stuff as well, which we'll come to later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it just helps me get a different angle on things. And yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm always just trying to find something new that encourages people to come and visit. That's really what it's all about. It's not taking pictures for fun. It's all about getting people to go, oh, I love that picture. Where's that? Yeah. Oh, that's Blenheim Palace. That looks fantastic. I want to go there. That's doing the job.
Yeah, and Pete, I just want to ask you about doing the job in a moment. You mentioned this telescopic pole thing. Do you use a drone, or are you no longer permitted to?
Yeah, no, we are permitted. The drone laws have changed dramatically over the last couple of years, but still at Blenheim, it's a very, very restricted site. You cannot just turn up and put a drone up in the sky.
Yeah.
It's within the Oxford Airport restriction zone. So every time I fly, I have to call air traffic control, get them to give me permission to take off. And I tell them exactly what height I'm going to be, where I'm going to be flying. And then by courtesy, I always call them afterwards when I've landed and say, okay, thank you very much for your cooperation. My flight's over. I might need to come back again on another day when it's just keeping friendly with them, really. But, you know, it's a long process. You have to have a lot of paperwork already on their desk, so they know that you're flying legally, you've got all the right insurance documents and liability, etc. So you cannot just turn up, as I've seen people do.
And what happens if you were to?
Me personally, well, I wouldn't. But if somebody was to do that, they're breaking the law, because they are within a very restricted flight zone. And I've seen people flying here above 400 feet.
Wow.
And that is dangerous and illegal.
Yeah.
So, and the trouble is, technology with drones has changed dramatically as well. You know, I used to fly massive things that were quite scary things to fly, and you really had to pay attention. And it was well before the technology had made it a lot safer for drones to fly. Now, you know, you can fly something that, you know, there's a drone out there that's about as big as that.
Oh, goodness.
And people can get that out of their pocket and fly. And, you know, it's classed as a toy because that's the classification of a particular drone that size. But you're breaking the law because you're flying within the air traffic control restricted area. So there's a lot of minefield there to tread very carefully.
So just to go back to the image that we're looking at the moment. So this was obviously shot in spring.
Yes.
And I think one of the lovely things about a place like Blenheim is that it changes,
Yes.
you know, so much from season to season.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've captured the finest view, to quote Winston Churchill's father. Yeah. And you've got it there, and you've got it again, yeah, you know, here. And, you know, there's a little bit of me, until we spoke recently, you know, I kind of thought, you know, he obviously just pops out. Oh, it looks like a nice frosty day today, I'll just nip out. But in fact, you're working very closely to a brief, aren't you?
Yes, very much. You know, I don't just wander around going, oh, that's a nice shot, I'll take that. It's very much part of a marketing strategy, yeah, that follows a line of basically communication with the general public to say, hey, you know, this is what's going on at the Palace this week. And fortunately on that snowstorm that you probably remember, it happened fairly quickly. So yeah, what we wanted to do was, okay, Pete, get out there quick and capture the snow, because it doesn't happen that regularly enough during our winters to really be able to get it. So I kind of knew the areas that I wanted to go to straight away, because, you know, they're certainly well rehearsed in my head. And also I just loved going back to that other shot you had where, you know, it was in the autumn, I think, just seeing the same place, different seasons. I love that. I love the contrast between the two kind of places, but exactly the same scene, but different conditions.
Yeah. So you'd never get bored with looking at the same thing.
There's always something different to see. As a photographer, you get to kind of know almost where every tree lines up and just think, right, I always know I've got to be a little bit that way just to avoid that, whatever it is, lamppost or whatever. And you just have all those things in your mind. So you know, because of my frequency here, I can say, right, I know where to go for that shot right now, because the sun's doing a certain thing that I know at a certain time of day will just hit a certain bit of magic light in the right place at the right time.
Wow. It's I mean, I can tell, well, in fact, let's move on to the next image. Okay. And you've got this little chap.
Yes.
I can't begin to imagine the patience you must have to capture just the right shot.
No, you're right there. And a lot of the wildlife stuff you're going to see soon is enormous amounts of patience you cannot imagine. This little chap, I call him Fez now because he's become a regular visitor to me. It's quite funny, when I turn up to this particular area that I've been photographing wildlife at recently, he can spot me a mile off. He recognizes my car and he comes running across the lawns to see me, because he knows that I might give him a bit of food.
I was going to say, is bribery involved?
Yes. Let's not call it bribery. Let's call it welfare to animals. And it's not just any old food. You know, I have special bird food that I give him. It's very healthy, of course.
Of course.
And anyway, so he's just got to feel comfortable with me now. He's become to trust me. And it's so funny that, you know, for a long time I had to turn up really early morning, and I creep out to my hide where I've got my cameras often already set up the night before, and I just have to be so quiet, you know, because the minute you make a noise, wildlife's just gone.
Yeah.
So I'm creeping as quiet as I possibly can, and I'm often, you know, camouflaged up as well. So, you know, I'm always looking like a tree.
Oh, wow.
And I hide in the bushes because, you know, I have to be so quiet and unnoticed. And I can be sitting there, there's no noise, and suddenly I feel something pecking at my foot, and it's him.
Oh, fantastic.
He found me through all these bushes and all these trees. He's found me, and he's sitting there, and he's like, right, where's my breakfast then?
Does he have a family?
No, probably not. Only me.
Oh, I was going to say, it'd be wonderful if one morning you turn up and, you know, there's Mrs. Fez and lots of baby Fezes.
Not that I know of. I think he's too selfish for that. He just wants his breakfast. But it was funny, the other day I was sitting in my hide and just having my flask of coffee and a sandwich, and he jumped on my lap and he's trying to steal my sandwich. He's so tame now. He's so funny. But he gets a little bit irritating now because I'm thinking, hey, Fez, come on. Shh, be quiet, I'm trying to film a kingfisher out there. Just shush, leave me alone.
Oh, goodness.
But, you know, he's adorable to have around.
I bet. I think that's marvellous.
So that's how I managed, you know, on the subject of that picture, that's how I managed to get him so close up, because he's not intimidated or scared by me at all. You know, he's learned to trust me. He's learned that guy's going to give me food.
And Pete, it's not just a long lens. You're actually physically
really,
very, very
really close
wow.
up. Just with a little lens like that, really, really close up.
Right. Okay. Well, let's have a look at the next shot. Again, describe what are we looking at here?
Well, one of the projects I had to do was about wildlife in the park, and because there's a new exhibition here that you probably heard about, the Stables exhibition. Yeah. And within that exhibition, there's what's called a nature hide. And within that, there are little sort of letterbox areas where you can look through, and it shows a lot of imagery that I've photographed and filmed, rather, of wildlife in the park. So what I wanted to do was establish it by not just having a random wildlife subject that could be anywhere, like Fez was before. I wanted to get the palace and a statement about wildlife there. And lo and behold, I found this gorgeous little coots nest that I'd seen her building for quite a while. Yeah. And it was just perfectly lined up with the palace. And
that's sorry, Pete, that's the little coot there, the little bald-headed coot.
Yeah. And coots are so cute. They really are. And it was really funny because, you know, I kind of, the more I photograph wildlife, the more I get to understand their habits and what they do and their natural instincts. And so I can say, right, I know the minute I turn up near that nest, and again, I'm on quite a long lens there, so I'm not really going to endanger her, you know, running off and leaving her nest. But the minute they see me, she does get off the nest and go for a little swim. And then I think, right, okay. So I just sit there really, really quietly. And lo and behold, in 5 minutes, when she knows that I'm not going to cause any nuisance to her, she'll come back and sit on the nest and just have a little waddle like that. And she'll sit down and she's quite happy. So it was just a perfect moment, really, a composition of getting the palace in the background and the coot on the nest in the foreground. And it says everything about wildlife and Blenheim Palace.
And here's another one. Look at that. I absolutely love that, and how you've got the birds in. And I have to say, you're talking to someone that finds it really difficult to take a half-decent photograph. You know, I just think that is superb.
Oh, thank you. Well, it does look like a quick, opportune snapshot, but it certainly wasn't. I'd seen these gulls always lining up on the jetty out on the Queen Pool many times. And I thought, that's got to be a lovely shot, because I can line up the palace with these seagulls sitting on their little strut of wood. Yeah. It's a perfect composition, also with the bulrushes in the foreground. But they are as flighty as anything else. The minute you turn up, they fly off.
Yeah.
And so I saw them. You have to choose the right time of day. That, you see, I'm talking about times of day earlier on. That was actually quite mid-morning.
Oh, right, okay.
And they were all out there, you know, just drying their wings off and having a nice bit of a sunbathe. But I just wanted to get that shot. So I had all my camouflage gear on, and I crawled along the floor for about 50 yards. I kept looking up and thinking, yes, they're still there. They're still there. I got all the way to line it up, just lifted up, got my camera ready, and they flew off.
Oh, no.
And it took me 3/4 of an hour to crawl all the way to that one spot. So I thought, right, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. The best thing to do is just sit really, really quietly. And eventually, after about an hour, they thought, oh, well, that stupid guy with the camera's not around anymore. We can go and sit back on that ledge. And lo and behold, they did. So that's actually them coming into land.
I was going to say, are they landing or taking off?
And I just knew by that particular time of year, there was a frequency of them constantly coming back to that little spot. So I thought, if I wait long enough, they'll come back. And
wow.
They did.
And I love on this, you know, the detail. And here you've got a little pair of legs and little web feet hanging over the edge. I mean, it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I don't think I've ever met such a patient man, to be honest. So what's happening here?
Well, that actually wasn't that long ago, and it was when we were still getting frosts in late April.
Mhm.
And I was turning up to the river near Bladen Bridge, and it's where I've got one of my hides going on further down that way in the picture. And I noticed there was a deer there a couple of times, and deers are so, they're so frighty. The minute that doe sees me, she's off as fast as a rocket. But one day I saw her just grazing around. She hadn't noticed me. So I got right down on my knees and crawled very, very slowly towards her. And every time she looked up, I just froze to the spot. And as long as you're still, she's not she's just a bit confused, but she didn't think it was a person, probably because I was dressed up to look like a tree anyway. But I just, every time she looked down or looked away, I would take a few steps further forward. And when she'd look up, I would just keep very still. And that's one of her looking up, thinking, who is that strange thing? What is that strange thing there that looks like a man with a tripod? Is it a tree or is it a photographer with a tripod? And I just got the shot. And a second later, she bolted off anyway.
And Pete, do visitors, I've now got this image of you kind of shimmying along the ground on your tummy dressed in camouflage. Do people ever stop you and say, excuse me, sir, what the hell are you doing?
No, because they don't see me because I'm dressed up in camouflage.
Of course. What a silly question.
Well, I hope they don't see me because that would destroy the point. Yeah. Having said that, I did have to warn security here that, hey guys, just to let you know that you're going to see possibly a terrorist around at odd hours of the day dressed up in camouflage gear, carrying very long, strange looking implements. So just to warn you, it's not a terrorist, it's me just being a crazy photographer.
Yeah. Okay, so again, we're just having a look at some of the shots that you I think particularly like, and again, this one, it makes me shiver because it's so cold but so beautiful, and that lovely thick snow on the branches there and on the leaves, again, a shot to die for.
Yeah, and it was just lucky timing, really. I knew the ducks always hang around that area, but they're normally just hanging around waiting for people to give them some food. It's right by Seven Arches Bridge. Just for anyone that wants to go and take great wildlife pictures, that's a perfect spot because you can get pretty close to a lot of waterfowl that do hang around that area, and it's nicely framed up with those kind of very tall trees in the background all in a row. And any time of year you can usually get a nice picture there. And I just knew that at some point those little ducks would decide to go off upstream a little bit, and lo and behold they did.
Oh, how lovely. And a question just came into my mind, it popped out again because I heard a ping on my screen, which is a bit annoying, but never mind, it'll come back, no doubt. So let's have a look at the next one. Again, it's a similar spot, but this time, instead of the ducks on the water, you've got these.
Yeah. That actually leads me to, it's just reminded me, what happens a lot with wildlife is you become quite tuned in to sounds as well. So I'm looking at that shot thinking, well, there's a guy, as you can see, there's a guy in a yellow jacket walking past. And that was good because I wanted a person in the shot. So it wasn't just some isolated location somewhere. I wanted to be somewhere that visitors could actually explore and visit even in midwinter. And often what I'll hear, particularly when I'm out on the lake, is geese. And when you hear a particular sound they make, I think, right, they're flying. And if I can hear several geese, I know that there's quite a few of them flying, probably in formation. And you just got to keep your wits about you and think, where are they going to go? Where are they going to go? Because quite often they will fly across the shot. And lo and behold, they did. And I heard them coming probably about 30 seconds before they came across into that shot in perfect timing. So it was just being aware that, I wasn't looking somewhere else and thinking, oh, nothing's happening here. I thought, yeah, they could quite possibly fly through this picture in a minute, and they did.
And Pete, okay, so that leads me to ask, what's the one that got away?
Oh, too many to mention. There was one I remember last year. Obviously, it's geese and gosling time at the moment. They're all over the place, and they're so cute. they're growing pretty fast. You know,
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, they were tiny little cute chicks. Now they're about the size of furry rugby balls wandering around. But there was a lovely shot before the bridge was being renovated a couple of years ago, I think it was, that I tried to get this picture. I saw this line of geese just about to cross the road. And I thought, yes,
Oh.
perfectly lined up the road, and it was backlit. And there was a mum at the front and a dad at the back, or vice versa, and this line of geese. I thought, right, let's get the camera. And my car was parked pretty close by. I went to get the camera. By the time I got out, they'd gone.
Oh, how annoying.
How annoying. But I did get it, funny enough, yesterday.
Did you? Oh, brilliant.
So
Oh, well, I should
stay tuned.
look forward to
But
seeing
they're
that.
not quite so cute now. They are pretty cute, but instead of being really tiny little cute furry things,
Yeah.
they're about the size of oranges now, you know.
Oh, well, that's
But
not too bad.
And there was mum and dad at either end, so that was nice.
And Pete, do you always carry, I mean, what kit do you carry with you typically, or do you just carry everything with you?
I can't carry everything with me, unfortunately, although I do often carry this around. It does weigh a ton.
Yeah.
By the time you've got that and a few other cameras, you know, it really mounts up with weight. So usually I've just got a camera that I can use pretty quickly if I need to, medium focal length lens, because sometimes you need to capture something that's kind of medium distance. So I've usually got something like that with me. And, you know, even on an iPhone nowadays, I see people out there taking great pictures on iPhones. Yeah. You know, a lot of them have got 3 lenses to choose from. And the beauty of photography is technology is changing all the time. And that's something I want to talk about just after this. You know, people, the general public now have technology at their hands with stuff like this that they take great pictures with. And it's just being there at the right time, being patient, and waiting for that, you know, if you can get it, and a lovely bit of magic light as well, and hopefully a line of geese flying.
And does it make your job harder, Pete? Because as you say, you know, compared to the cameras that we have on our phones nowadays are probably as good, if not better, than cameras that most people had some years ago.
Yeah, certainly on a smartphone now, you can take pretty high-res pictures. It still doesn't stand up to the kind of massive supersize enlargements that we have to do for print publication. But they're still pretty good, certainly fine for social media or anything like that. But what's happened over the years, certainly while I've been in the industry, I mean, I used to have to carry around boxes and boxes and boxes of film like this. And there are only 20 sheets in that. Oh. Literally, if I was going abroad, we would have a whole mountain of these to take with us. And when we went through airport security, we just had to hope that it wasn't going to be x-rayed and damage the film.
Oh, goodness.
And we'd fly to the other side of the world, do the shoot. And this was in the days when it was dark cloth over the head and an upside down 5:4 plate camera.
In Victorian times.
I'm pre-Victorian. But what would happen is you would box off all the film afterwards, you know, to make it light proof and put it all away and seal up these boxes. And I might be literally on the other side of the world where there was no processing lab nearby, and wait until we'd flown all the way back to London to actually process the film, know that I'd got the shot. So that's what I mean about the stress levels back then. You know? And I'm talking about the days when film would come back from the lab and you'd have to spend hours going through all the film, choosing, sending it off to the client, getting them to have a look as well and say, yes, we want that one. Then it would have to be scanned and duplicated. It was a very, very laborious process. Things have changed now. You know, I showed you that camera that I used with a very long lens on it. And when you're using a big camera, particularly with, well, obviously with film where it's moving, you have to stabilize the camera. You can't just wander around with the camera going like this, you know, because you'll just get wobbly footage. So, you know, I'm using stabilizers that are often two-handed, quite heavy. You've got a chest harness on sometimes as well. But even with that area of photography, it's changing all the time. And from those days when I had one of those big chest harnesses and a double-handed gimbal, now I can put about the size of a cigar.
Gosh.
And it's fully stabilized, shoots 4K, broadcast quality. It's just incredible.
Right. And do you use purely digital cameras now?
Nowadays, yeah, we have to, just by the urgency of pictures. And to be honest with you, the quality is amazing.
Yeah.
There was a period right at the beginning, a lot of us, I would say craftsman photographers, I don't want to say old time photographers, although I suppose the two things go together. We said, digital's never going to take off. It hasn't got the quality. That's absolutely rubbish.
Yeah.
Digital now is amazing.
Wow.
The definition, the tonal range, the ability to be able to adjust the shadows and highlights, all that, that exposure latitude is there. And, I now, I've moved on from, the days when we used to have to shoot with very large sheets of film.
Yeah.
It then went to a chip about that big.
Yes.
Most people are familiar with these that go into your camera.
Yeah.
And then size just keeps going down, and then it gets even smaller.
Oh, goodness.
And now, even in one of these cameras, I'm shooting with one that size.
Oh, my goodness. Like a SIM card almost.
Yeah, this is it's like a SIM card, exactly.
Yeah.
But that will hold many, 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 many megabytes of information, more than the box of film used to.
Gosh.
And there's so much information on there, it's incredible. And it fits into my little camera.
Yeah.
But you've got to be so careful because these are all spring loaded. So often you can do a really important shoot that's maybe unrepeatable. You can't get the models back again. And you've got that one magic moment and you think, yes, I've got the shot. And then you're carefully trying to take the card out and it goes ping.
Oh, no.
And that's happened to me before now. Or I've lost the card. It's either fallen down a drain or I can't find it. And it's had stuff on there that I could not repeat.
Oh, Pete.
So you have to be very, very careful with these.
I bet you only do that once.
Yes,
Gosh.
you learn your lesson very quickly.
Right, okay. Well, sorry, I just wanted to kind of pop the picture to one side so that people could see what you were holding, really. So let's look at the next shot that we've got here. And I love this.
Yeah, they're very inquisitive sheep.
They are, aren't they?
They are. It's funny, if they haven't got lambs with them, because this was pre-lambing, and it wasn't that long ago, it was mid-April, when we were getting those frosty days. I just turn up, get out of my Land Rover, walk slowly over to them, and they just sort of looked at me. And the sun was coming up behind them, and they were like, yeah, what do you want? And it was just a magic moment, really. There's nothing special about that picture apart from the fact that sheep are inquisitive.
No, it's lovely. And you didn't scare them because they're also very skittish, aren't they?
Yeah, again, I'm pretty quiet, and I got stories to tell you about these though.
Yeah, should we save Mr. Heron for a moment?
Yeah.
And we'll come back to him. Now, in fact, we'll also save Mrs. Swan.
Okay.
Okay. But again, they're just absolutely beautiful pictures.
Thank you.
But you don't just photograph wildlife, do you? You come to Blenheim as well, and you photograph events.
Yes, throughout the year, as everyone knows, there are many events that go on, from the horse trials to Salon Privé, where it's very, very expensive cars and also very, very expensive horses, and they're both quite scary events to film. They're exciting, but you've got a deadline, you've got a lot of responsibility with filming those things, because one false move and you could easily, tripod could fall over and you've damaged a £2 million car or whatever.
Yeah.
And also you've got people all around, and you've got to be careful that some people do want to be on film, some people don't want to be on film. You're constantly running from one place to another, trying to capture every single thing that happens on that day. So it is very stressful, but it's a nice thing to do. And it's great to see the palace being used for such large events, which it has done throughout history, as we know.
And in fact, I can share one of these moments with you. And this is going back to 1947. when Mr. Churchill came to address a Conservative association meeting, and there were thousands and thousands of people there. So this is, you know, whoever was behind the lens there was your equivalent, I dare say.
Yeah, and you know, seeing those events on the South Lawn, they do, when I say cause a lot of damage, damage is the wrong word, because, you know, it's inevitable that pristine grass of that kind of billiard table quality is going to get wrecked by marquees being there for several weeks. But, you know, it's there to be used as an event platform. And it's just, you know, the wonderful garden team here, particularly with Hilary at the helm, you know, they're amazing at their job of reclaiming it all afterwards and letting it get back to normal, and watching all the grass grow. And here you've got a shot of an aftermath of, but tell the story.
Well, exactly that. So we chatted about this, didn't we? And you mentioned, as you have done, about how South Lawn then is left with a little bit of work needing doing to it. And it just made me smile, because things just don't change. And this was the aftermath of Uncle Winston's speech, as you can see. So, you know, he disappeared, the crowds disappeared, the chairs are left, there's litter on the floor, etc., etc. And that's not what's normally photographed, is it?
No, exactly. No. And it's just reminded me, I did film a few years back when we had that drought, you know, that really, really hot summer. Yeah. And I was able to do some aerial look downs onto the South Lawn, and it was incredible what you could see, the old parterres, the old foundations of what the formal gardens were back out on that South Lawn. And it was all showing up because it was the first time the drought had really affected the earth so much that you could see the underlying earth foundations from way back then. So that South Lawn has certainly seen many, many things in its past, and hopefully many in its future. I feel very privileged sometimes standing on that South Lawn thinking, oh my God, what's gone on here before over hundreds of years? It's quite incredible.
Yeah, and I think it's the same inside the palace sometimes. You know, you stand in a space and you just think, gosh, you know, what has this seen? What has this seen? But we're going to come back to the present, if I can drag you back to a blustery May afternoon. And we saw that beautiful picture of the swan.
Yes.
So what's going on here, Peter? You've got your camera set up, you've got your tripod. You're not quite in disguise. I mean, you blend, but you're not hooded or anything. So what's happening?
Well, this is a little video that you're going to play in a minute. And it's just really what I wanted to do was show people from start to finish this swan's nest that I discovered being built. I think it was mid-March sometime. I saw the swan's nest, but it's all in the story of this video and you'll see it. And I hope you enjoy it. It's just showing people really that, you know, wildlife photography is not a case of just going, oh, click. You know, I've really staked this one out and spent a lot of time working out the right angle and the habits of these two swans and what they did every day, and just watching them and seeing their way of life and reading their habits to finally get the shot. So give it a little play, and I hope you will.
And just, in fact, Pete, you're absolutely right, because we were due to do this this chat about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And we had to delay it, didn't we?
Because
to accommodate the swans.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a look.
Okay.
So this is a little story about some little swans, and yes, it is a little bit cute. Mute swans are so beautiful on the lake, and it really sets off a picture. If you've got a nice little swan with a palace in the background, it's a photographer's dream. So back in March, I discovered a nest hidden away behind some bushes down by the river. And I wasn't quite sure if it was an active nest, but lo and behold, one day Mum turned up. So I knew there was a pretty good chance that it was. So I thought it was worth a try. And this is a little story about that. And I definitely knew something would happen when I saw this going on. Oh, love. First of all, I put up this big, long camouflage screen so I could film them close up without disturbing her. I certainly didn't want her to abandon the nest. It was so amazing to be here early in the morning with the sun coming up, little coot swimming around and an egret in the background. And then one day she stood up and yes, some eggs on the nest at last. Other days, not much really going on, just sitting on the nest again and again, a bit of feather preening, and Dad would be sitting on the other bank just keeping a bit of a watch out. He'd been for a swim and a bit of a leg stretch, and just got to be patient. He would always be close by in case a heron would drop in, and talk about voyeurism, they would tolerate him for so long until, enough, get out of here. And he would usually fly off and then come back and land in a tree and watch them. The herons really are quite beautiful, but the sad reality is they're just waiting for a tasty cygnet to grab. That's nature. Then I found a few other angles where I could hide away in the bushes and get some great long lens shots without them seeing me. Day after day I would come down to the river and watch to see if anything was happening. And even if it wasn't, sometimes it's just lovely to sit quietly and listen to nature, and there'd all be something going on. And the minute you looked away, you would miss something. So I had to keep my eyes peeled at all times. But one day I noticed that Dad was doing something a little bit strange. He was picking up reeds from one section of the water to another, very carefully placing them around. I knew something was up. And one day I went to see the nest, and lo and behold, a little head popped up. Yes! I even saw one coming out of a shell and giving its first quack. How cute is that? Imagine my delight when I saw the proud parents sitting there with their cygnets. It was a long wait, but worth it. But now I was hoping to photograph them close up and taking their first swim. And my wish came true. They came so close. Maybe they knew I'd been watching them all the time and they just weren't concerned about it. And now it's just a case of all my ducks, or cygnets in this case, to be in a row. And lo and behold, they did. They swam right towards the setting sun and gave me that really lovely backlit lighting effect. Absolutely magic. You see, I said this would be a little bit cute, but maybe sometimes we need that.
I think that is absolutely stunning. More than cute, Pete. I mean, my goodness.
Thank you.
That was worth waiting for, wasn't it?
Nearly, well, it was over. I counted up to 30 days and then I lost count in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go down there and think, nothing happening. She's just sitting there, not doing anything. And then one day, yes. And I could tell there was something up, by him doing that thing with the reeds and just her mannerisms and everything else. I thought, she's either hatched them or she's just about to hatch them. And then she stood up and it's like, yes.
Oh, do you know, I don't suppose you knew how many eggs there were. Do you know if they all? Seven.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah. And I hope, I went down there yesterday and I couldn't see her around. And often what they'll do, they'll stay on the nest for the first couple of days once they've hatched, and then they'll just go off and meander around everywhere, so that they probably won't ever come back to that nest again. And it's a particularly vulnerable time for those little cygnets right now as well, because of that nasty heron.
Yeah. Should we have a look?
Yeah, let's have a look. It's not anything blood curdling, so don't worry. It's the reality of nature, really. And and the thing about the swans is they're very protective, so it would be a very, very bold heron that was able to get one, and a very fast heron.
Yeah.
But it does happen.
Okay, let's have a look. Let's see what happened. So let me go. Okay, go to the next
So this
slide. Oh, hold on. I may need to
is a
move it on in a different way. Right.
No problem.
Talk amongst yourselves for a moment. Pete, what I was going to ask actually is if you were to see something going on, i.e., you know, a heron going for one of the cygnets, would you interfere?
If it was before it had made that attack, then I probably would have deterred it, yes.
Yeah.
Just by the nature of human nature, you're not going to want to see a cygnet speared in front of you by a heron. If it had already been speared, I would say no, just let nature take its course. You know, heron has got to eat. It's probably got chicks back in its nest that need to be fed. But I would prefer that it eats fish than those cute little furry things.
Okay, I think we can see the heron now. Hold on a moment. Let's see. Okay, here we go.
Right, so I'll talk over this a little bit and you might need to pause it now and again. But what I was trying to get a heron in my shot anyway for a long time. And, you know, just by sitting around by that river and listening to nature and just pause it there for 1 minute, Antonio. What I would do is just stay very still. And like I say, I'm often in a hide for that particular picture there. I'm just filming things like this lovely coot and this baby cootette. But really with herons, they're quite funny really, because around by the main Great Lake, they are around and they're used to people. So they're not that flighty, they're not that timid. You can quite easily see them flying around and they will land fairly close to you. But when I've been filming, they know they can go down there and very, very rarely see a human being. So they like to go down there fishing and various other areas in the park when a lot of the visitors leave at the end of the day. So often I'm waiting and waiting and waiting, just hoping that a heron will come in, because they often do at a certain time of day. So what I'm doing while I'm waiting is obviously not just sitting there getting bored. I'm trying to pick up other wildlife shots as well. So I would, with my long lens, get things like this. So you can just play it again now.
Okay, hold on.
And as you're sitting there, you do see all these lovely things going on. You know, as I'm sitting there, this line of geese came by, and then lo and behold, the heron came in. And I'm some distance away. Okay, just pause it again there.
Right, hold on. Oops, there we go.
So I'm on a fairly long lens there, but even 100 yards away, I can guarantee you, even if I'm hidden in bushes wearing camouflage gear, I've only got to do that and move up to the camera and it spots me and it's flying off.
Wow.
The eyes are incredible. And I just thought, oh, well, it's just because, you know, it's seen something else and whatever. But no, I guarantee you, time after time after time, I can see one land in the distance and I can be as slow as possible creeping up to it and it sees me and flies off. So I've learned a few tricks to try and get them. And what I often do is, if there's a tree nearby lining up, I will line up with the, you know, the shadow of the tree or the lee of the tree, and just creep up slowly behind it and then have a little look and then wait for it to do something and look somewhere else and then go forward. And that's often how I can manage to get these heron shots. And then finally, when you're close enough, I just slowly edge out from the tree and very, very slowly put my hands up to the camera, because the slightest movement, they see you and they're off. They're very, very finely tuned vision. So just continue with that one. And he's just sitting there looking for fish at the moment. And these egrets are of the same kind of family, and they're equally beautiful. And that one saw me at least 150 yards away. This one here, I thought, there's no way he's going to see me. It's a long lens shot. But no, he saw me. Now, this is quite interesting. This is seeing, and I thought, ha, yeah, so you thought you got a fish. Well, you didn't, did you? But lo and behold, I stayed there and watched and watched and watched. And you'll see the antics he does with his wings. And lo and behold, yes, you've got a fish. Now, that is very rare to get. Just, first of all, getting a heron in the viewfinder that close, and then him actually making a kill. Now, cormorants, they're quite funny too. They can turn up anywhere, like this one was. I was filming that muntjac on the side of the bank, and suddenly this cormorant came in, and there he is drying his wings out on a log. Now, this is quite funny. They've got amazing wings, but they're awful flyers. I mean, come on, look at that for a takeoff.
He's bunny hopping.
I could do better than that with some flippers on. But they are quite lovely to watch, because what they'll do when I'm filming them, if they're on the water, they're relatively, I could probably get about 50 yards away from one of those when it's fishing, because it's usually concentrating on looking around for where it's going to fish. And it can dive down and you think, oh, well, it's going to pop up in a minute. And it doesn't. It pops up about 100 yards away downstream. So they've gone a long way before they reset.
Yeah. Wow, how excellent. I think that's, I mean, that was almost a comedy takeoff, wasn't it?
Wasn't it, Jess?
Hey, do you have, I mean, apart from Fez, your pheasant, obviously, do you have another favourite? I mean, do you like
A couple of
swans?
ducks regularly turn up, and again, they recognise my car, and they're regular models of mine. They'll often sit on the south lawn with the palace in the background and kiss each other, and it's like, yes, thank you very much. They're very easy to work with, and most visitors know, yeah, the ducks are very friendly. Some of them in certain areas of the park are, it's not that they're vicious or anything like that, but they're just a little less used to people, and they'll run away a lot quicker. But there's an incredible variety of ducks here. You've got mandarin ducks, you've got great crested grebes, and watching them do their sort of mating dance is fantastic to watch.
And don't they carry their babies on their back?
Yeah, and I'm waiting to see that.
Yeah,
is
wow.
cute. I haven't found them yet, but when I do, you'll certainly know about it.
Fantastic.
They
Fantastic.
are beautiful. And there's so much wildlife here. It's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And this is a beautiful time to watch it, you know, because they're all active and they've come out of this cold, miserable winter into a cold, miserable spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Pete, we've had I mean, we've been kind of chatting as we went, but we've had a question from Nadia. And she said, hi, Pete, what's your favourite, maybe less obvious location or view at Blenheim?
My favourites is down by the Cascades. So from the Cascade Bridge, leading out in the direction of Bladen Bridge, that section across there is lovely, particularly at the end of the day. And it's all within the park grounds. And it's just when most of the visitors have gone and the sun's going down. And that's where I shot a lot of that wildlife that you've seen. It's just a really lovely, peaceful spot down there, and always full of active wildlife.
Wow. And Pete, so probably one final question. Apart from the crested grebe with its babies, what's the shot you really, really want to get?
Well, there's an otter around, apparently.
Apparently it's eaten all the koi carp in the secret garden.
Yeah.
That otter.
Yeah, that same one. And I know he's around because I was told that he was down in that particular area that I've just mentioned. He was seen there the other day. And also I've seen a lot of freshwater mussel shells. And particularly this time of year, the water started to get very, very clear, and I can see right into the bottom of the riverbed. And there are lots and lots of half-eaten mussel shells around that area. So I know he's around somewhere, and I would be surprised if he's on his own, because, you know, otters, you know, they don't just, unless he's a completely solitary otter.
Yeah.
And that would be lovely. I'd really like to get an otter. There are quite a few other things. There are some badgers around, but obviously they're nocturnal. And I was very confused about one particular area of earth disturbance when I walked in to get towards one of my hides. And I kept seeing a rather large deposit of dung, as it were. And
they have latrines, badgers. They have communal latrines.
Well, I found that out, and I thought, I'm really confused about this. What is it? So I set up a night vision camera, and lo and behold, the next day there it was, a badger having a
ablutions.
Yes. So yeah, I'd like to. And I did see the other day, and again, visitors could quite easily see this if they're lucky enough, a black rabbit.
Wow.
They are very rare, and it's not a pet escaped rabbit. It's a particular, it's like the equivalent of albino, but in the other direction, and they have no color whatsoever. And there's one around, and I've seen him on the walkway down towards the Cascades on that walk from the Rose Garden.
Gosh.
Down there. And it was so funny. It was a brown rabbit and a black rabbit running round and round in circles. It was so lovely, but of course, there's no way I could have got my camera out in time to get him. But that's a very, very rare sight.
Because we've got, there are black pheasants and there are white pheasants, aren't there?
Too,
but I've never heard about black rabbits.
Yeah, no, they are very rare. And I did a bit of research on them and found that it's not just an escaped, pet rabbit. It is something in nature.
It's a known phenomenon.
They are quite cute to see, for sure. Keep using that word cute. I should use other words now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Pete, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, as I knew it would be. Thank you so much. I think
don't give all the credit to me. It's the wildlife that did it, really.
Well, but to be fair, as I say, if it had been me, you'd just see lots of it was there a moment ago, so I think, you're incredible, your skill, obviously, you're incredible patient, and you clearly have a very good eye for this, all things that you don't need me to tell you. But thanks so much for giving up your time to chat to us.
I hope people enjoyed it, and just to let everyone know, don't hesitate to ask me any questions on private messenger or whatever. I'm happy to share my experiences of photography, and I've got no secrets about it. I'm happy to give advice to anyone that needs it.
Oh, you're a star. Thank you very much indeed.
You're most welcome.
See you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.